I'm fully prepared with everything I need for the Jay-Z documentary. The moment he sent that legal letter, I knew I had to let the world see who he really is. He and Diddy are cut from the same cloth. He just hides his arrogance and control behind a cleaner image. Our feud has lasted 20 years, and I know better than anyone what he's done in the shadows. I even suspect that so-called funeral bouquet wasn't Diddy's idea at all, but Jay-Z acting on his behalf. Back when Nicki Minaj posted that video of him wearing a pink wig, all I did was repost it, and he got so nervous he had his lawyers threaten me. In 2015, Nicki worked her ass off helping him build his platform, and he allegedly pocketed her $7.9 million in royalties. And then there's his fingerprints all over key incidents through the years, whether it's the elevator footage or the guest list at Diddy's parties. He was involved, clearly, but somehow he always walks away untouched. That's what he's best at, pulling strings behind the scenes while pretending to be spotless in public. And now that a corner of the darkness has been ripped open, I'm not stopping. Everything my team and I are doing isn't about attacking anyone. It's about making sure the truth can't be buried by him ever again.
Did he answer the phone? He ain't answering the motherfucking phone. Yeah, it's like this, like
we had a black billionaire's lunch.
Black excellence, they're sitting there like, yeah. It's the billionaire brunch.
Oh,
like,
I hate you, man.
And we here together, and we gonna keep staying together. We getting tighter.
Unaware of anything going on here. This is the one time I'm gonna be with you this year. Yo, I feel like I'm normal again. Get me out of here.
The music industry is buzzing, and not in a good way. At least not for one of hip-hop's most iconic figures. Since crossing into his 50s, Jay-Z is reportedly in full damage control mode. And insiders say the situation is far more serious than his team would like the public to believe. What's sending shockwaves through the entertainment world is the emergence of private communications between Jay-Z and Diddy, correspondence that, according to sources close to the unfolding legal storm, paints a troubling picture. For years, whispers circulated in the shadows of the industry. Now, those whispers are turning into headlines, and Jay-Z finds himself at the center of allegations that many are calling some of the most disturbing to surface from this entire saga. The timing couldn't be worse for the Brooklyn mogul. With Diddy's legal troubles dominating every entertainment news cycle, any association, however distant, is being placed under a microscope. And for Jay-Z, the microscope appears to be zeroing in with uncomfortable precision.
Sean Carter aided and abetted or was directly involved. It's about to get real tense, and there's a lot of girls and boys who are still trapped inside the machine.
Meanwhile, 50 Cent has been making headlines of his own, and he's been remarkably candid about where he stood, or rather, where he chose not to stand, when it came to Diddy's world. In multiple interviews, the rapper and television mogul made it crystal clear that he was never part of Diddy's inner circle, and he says that deliberate distance is precisely what allows him to speak so freely today. And 50 recalled feeling genuinely uncomfortable in certain spaces and around certain invitations that came from that world. Rather than ignore those instincts, he leaned into them, kept his distance, and as he puts it, that decision has aged remarkably well. When the accusations against Diddy began flooding the news cycle, 50 says he learned about them the same way the rest of the world did, through the media. But unlike many who claim to be blindsided, 50 wasn't the least bit surprised. His reaction wasn't shock. It was more like quiet, unsettling confirmation of what his gut had been telling him all along.
Wright explained that Jay-Z is worse than Diddy. She explained how Jay-Z has done worse things than what Diddy did to Cassie to other females. And she said that she has the scars to prove it. She alleged that at one time Jay-Z attacked her and got it on film like Diddy did. And she alleged that this is why Jay-Z is totally pulling away from Diddy and you don't see him around. And it's been alleged for quite a while that Jay-Z is pulling away from Diddy because he doesn't want himself caught in the crossfire. I mean, you even have 50 Cent at this point talking about how Jay-Z is in hiding while this whole Diddy thing blows over. And you even have these accusations of Jay-Z being responsible for what happened to Cassie White. So I'm going to go ahead and roll you guys this clip of everything that Jag had to say about Jay-Z being worse than Diddy. And you guys let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments.
Sean Carter is just as bad as the diddler. And I know that for a fact. I got the scars to prove it. You wanna know what a box cutter feels like going into your skin and ripping you?
As the investigation into Diddy's alleged activities continued to deepen and expand, one question began echoing louder than almost any other across social media and entertainment circles alike. Where was Jay-Z, and why was he so silent? In a situation this explosive, silence is rarely invisible. If anything, it became its own kind of statement, and people noticed. Speculation ran wild almost immediately. Thus, some industry insiders believed that Jay-Z's team had already caught wind that his name was surfacing in legal proceedings, and that their carefully calculated silence was a strategic move designed to stay ahead of the narrative. Others, however, were growing increasingly alarmed, convinced that the damage to his reputation was already quietly accumulating whether charges existed or not. Social media, of course, poured gasoline on the fire. Rumors began swirling with renewed intensity that Jay-Z was allegedly working behind the scenes to suppress the voices of those making accusations, a claim that only deepened the public's suspicion and fueled more conversation than any formal statement ever could have.
It's actually exactly what Jay-Z's accuser is saying, that even though she dropped the lawsuit, she still stands by what she says, and she only dropped it because of harassment and the fact that she's terrified of Jay-Z. She says that Jay-Z is allegedly bullying her into saying that her accusations were false. In fact, in new legal documents, she is claiming that she was recently approached outside of her home and cornered by two people who told her they were investigators working for one of Jay-Z's lawyers. She claims they tried to get her to sign an affidavit stating that her claims against Jay-Z were false, but she refused. Jane Doe also claims the alleged investigators asked her if her attorney, Tony Busby, sought her out as a client and offered her money to pursue false claims against Jay-Z, two allegations she says she denied. He says this alleged confrontation left her intimidated and terrified, wondering how they found her when her identity had remained anonymous in media reports and legal proceedings. He also claims that her parents were approached by two investigators asking similar questions about Busby and her story. In the new documents, she reveals she decided to drop the claim because she was frightened by the reaction from Jay-Z and his supporters. He says she feared she would be publicly outed and subjected to public attacks.
Sources within the music industry have been vocal about one uncomfortable truth. A single federal criminal investigation has the power to completely unravel the lives of everyone who moved in close proximity to Diddy. That reality is why so many observers believe the documentary centered around 50 Cent carries a weight that goes far beyond entertainment value. This isn't a story about one man's downfall. It's a broader reckoning about who knew what. And how power was exercised quietly and deliberately behind closed doors. And perhaps most chillingly, who might be pulled into the wreckage next. Commentators have also raised pointed questions about how Diddy managed to maintain his protected status for as long as he did. The prevailing theory, according to many who've spoken out, is that he cultivated influence by surrounding himself with powerful people and carefully managing the flow of information as rumors circulated and grew. Now I've been seeing the spying clients. Wow. In what would be a dramatic twist, even by Hollywood standards, reports have emerged suggesting that Diddy may be cooperating with federal authorities in an attempt to negotiate better terms for himself. And if those reports hold any truth, the name allegedly being handed over in those discussions is none other than Jay-Z, a revelation that has left the entertainment world completely stunned.
Well, Diddy's talk.
Now that the documentary has officially dropped, one thing has become undeniably clear to anyone paying attention. This story is not a retrospective. It is very much a present tense, rapidly evolving situation with consequences that no one can fully predict yet. Every new detail that surfaces, every new clip that goes viral, every new voice that steps forward seems to cast an even brighter spotlight on those who have chosen to remain in the shadows. And no one is standing deeper in that shadow right now than Jay-Z. The history between Jay-Z and Diddy is long, layered, and well documented in the annals of hip-hop culture, which is exactly why this moment carries so much gravity for both of their legacies. One of the most striking moments to emerge recently came from Gene Deal, Diddy's former personal bodyguard, who did not hold back when asked directly about the nature of Jay-Z and Diddy's relationship. His remarks came in direct response to a statement issued by Jay-Z's legal team asserting that the two were never particularly close. Gene Deal dismantled that claim with zero hesitation, making it clear he considered the denial to be completely without merit, and he had the receipts of personal experience to back it up.
How close was Diddy and Jay-Z? They was close enough that they wasn't playing basketball, they wasn't playing baseball. They wasn't playing football and they wasn't playing hockey or soccer for Diddy to come on stage, pat him on his ass, and then make the statement to people in the world that can't nobody call me Sean but Jay-Z. Now, I don't know what kind of statement, and I can't say, I wish I could say half a homo, but I know I can't say it. But I don't know what kind of half a homo that is. And you trying to say that you're not close to somebody. You coming on stage, patting them on their ass, and then you making a broad statement to the public, can't nobody call me Sean but Sean Carter. And I heard Jay-Z said the same thing about them. But they were so close that they had matching white girls together. Because when they used to see each other, they used to say, yo, how your skinny white girl doing? He'd be like, yo, how your skinny white girl doing? So, I guess that's a certain type of closeness.
I ain't know anything about that, man. I ain't know about, Jay touching his, ass. I gotta go see the video. I ain't hear about that.
Adding yet another compelling voice to the conversation is Dame Dash, Jay-Z's longtime business partner and one of the few people alive who arguably knows him better than almost anyone else in the industry. Dame recently opened up about the serious nature of the allegations swirling around his former partner, but what seemed to captivate Dame most wasn't the allegations themselves. It was the way people were reacting to them. Like research and what that reaction revealed about how dramatically public perception of Jay-Z had shifted. Dame admitted that he had never seen Jay-Z subjected to this level of public scrutiny before, not in all the years he had known him. For decades, Jay-Z operated with an almost mythological sense of invincibility. He was untouchable in the eyes of the public, a cultural institution as much as a person, but Dame made it clear that whatever protective armor Jay-Z once wore, as it didn't seem to be holding up the way it always had. This time, the pressure wasn't deflecting off him. It was landing.
It's just odd to see him in that, getting looked at in that way by white people. Like Jay does, yeah, like, you know what I'm saying?
What unsettled Dame most, beyond everything else, was something almost unprecedented in the history of Jay-Z's career. Aside from a small handful of isolated moments over the years, Dame says this is genuinely the first time he can remember Jay-Z being pushed into a defensive position and being forced to stay there. Jay-Z has built an entire legacy on being the man who never had to defend himself. Now, Dame says, the pressure is real, it is sustained, and it shows no signs of easing up. Equally fascinating to observers is the question of why 50 Cent seems so personally invested in keeping Jay-Z's name in the spotlight throughout all of this. Those close to the situation suggest that Diddy's legal troubles alone don't fully explain 50's motivation. Tony Yayo, a longtime member of 50's G-Unit camp, pointed to a deep-seated rivalry and a complex web of loyalty and betrayal that has defined the tension between 50 and Jay-Z for years. Hip-hop has always been a competitive arena. Yayo acknowledged, and when egos and ambitions collide at the highest levels, things have a way of getting very personal, very fast. Yet Yayo also noted that maturity sometimes wins out, pointing to a recent performance where Cameron, who had his own well-known history of conflict with 50, stepped onto the stage and the two shared a moment that spoke to growth. But with Jay-Z, Yayo suggested, that kind of resolution never arrived. He echoed Cameron's pointed observation that Jay-Z prioritizes corporate positioning over cultural loyalty, noting that the mogul consistently shows up for high-powered business events while routinely being absent from the hip-hop spaces that matter most to artists who built their careers from the ground up.
And there was this one part where 50 was talking, and he was saying, yeah, when Yayo was locked up, every G-Unit show, we actually put aside the money.
Bro, I told
for him,
you.
And he had Yayo had like $1 million.
Right. I just told you when I came out of my building, I see the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
There was no way I was getting shot there. And this is what I kind of tell you is like, when we was talking about stacks with the Porsche, 50's not going to let you say, get the Porsche. He going to say, let's get him out the hood first. If the money's there, but the money has to be there for you to live like that. The money's there. 50 didn't have to do that. Rest in peace to Hervé from Interscope, because he always said to me, man, 50 do more for you than any artist, than anybody does for their artists. More than Jay-Z. Young Guns was right there.
Yayo put it plainly. The single biggest difference between 50 Cent and Jay-Z isn't wealth, it isn't power, and it isn't influence, because by most measures they operate at comparable levels. The difference, he said, is accessibility. Jay-Z exists at a rarefied altitude where he seems entirely disconnected from the people and the culture that elevated him. 50, on the other hand, still shows up. He still maintains that thread of connection to where he came from, and according to Yayo, that matters more than people give it credit for. The incident that hit Yayo most personally, however, was the Super Bowl halftime show controversy. According to Yayo, 50 Cent was not on Jay-Z's radar when it came to selecting performers for what became one of the most talked about halftime shows in recent memory. The way Yayo tells it, it was Eminem who intervened and made it explicit. He would not take that stage unless 50 Cent was part of the performance. That detail, being whether fully confirmed or not, struck Yayo as deeply revealing. It wasn't just a business oversight to him. It felt like a very deliberate, very personal slight.
Well, speaking of Cameron,
Yeah.
he made a statement recently. He said that Jay-Z loves money more than hip-hop. And he pointed out that Jay-Z performed at Tom Brady's Hall of Fame ceremony, but he didn't perform in any Hip-Hop 50 events.
I mean, Jay-Z's on a whole nother level. Like, I mean, you
That's
know,
true.
he's like, but you know what I like about 50? 50's on a whole nother level, but he's still approachable. You still get to meet the people and you know, Jay got to remember the people that made him. You know, I'm not saying I don't got respect. I respect Jay-Z, 50, used to respect, you know, Diddy, but all that crazy shit going on. But, you know, I always respected him because I looked at, for New York, those were like the guys. You know what I'm saying? The guys with the most money and the most influence. So with Jay is like, when the last time you haven't seen Jay, so I think people are just gonna say that. You know what I'm saying? But for me, I mean, Jay, you know, you gotta remember, he didn't want 50 at the Super Bowl. That was crazy. I'm like,
Wait, Jay didn't want 50 at the Super
you didn't
Bowl?
know that? Yeah, he didn't want.
I remember Eminem pushed for it.
That was some hater shit. Yeah,
I remember
pushed for it,
Eminem
yeah.
was like, I'm not going to do it unless 50 does it. I heard that.
Yeah,
But I didn't know that Jay was trying to stop it.
I don't think Jay. I don't know. 50 never told me that, but I don't think Jay wanted him there. I don't know.
Because of what, some of the
I mean,
the back
you
and
know,
forth back in the
it's
day?
competition. You got to think, 50 always been competition for Jay. Remember, I'm about $1. What the fuck is 50 Cent?
That was a long time ago.
That was what, 9? What was
Yeah,
that?
but,
9?
but after that, they did a song together. Remember
Yeah,
the whole,
of course,
the
but
whole
50
Gina
was
sneaker
50 was
thing?
always competition for niggas. Then remember Jay said, "Yo, 50's coming." He told Siegel and them, and Memphis Bleak and all them.
Yeah.
And come on, 50's like, he's on a whole nother level. You got to remember, he came after niggas. He came after Jay and Rockefeller. G Unit came, and people might shit on G Unit, but with Eminem, Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, nobody has outsold us, bro.
Yeah.
Nobody has had the effect.
Yayo also recalled being told by record executives that 50 Cent has consistently gone further for the people in his circle than many of the most powerful figures in the industry have ever bothered to do for their own artists. While others at the top tend to pull the ladder up behind them, 50, by most accounts from those who've worked with him, keeps showing up for his people in ways that leave a lasting impression. On the broader subject of Jay-Z and Diddy's relationship, a growing number of sources are suggesting that things between the two began to fracture quietly and significantly long before any of this became public. People close to both camps have reportedly described a slow erosion of trust, along with genuine fears about who would have whose back if things ever went sideways. And now that things have gone sideways in the most public and catastrophic way imaginable, those concerns feel remarkably prescient. Jaguar Wright, a Q who has never been shy about making incendiary claims, has alleged that Jay-Z played a role behind the scenes in events connected to Diddy's unraveling. A claim that remains an allegation but has nonetheless taken on a life of its own in the court of public opinion.
Why does it all come to a head now? Why now? Why?
Because he's the acceptable monster. I told you that last year when I put you on the phone with him.
You did.
Perhaps one of the most grounded and credible perspectives to emerge from inside that world comes from Roger Bonds, who served as Diddy's chief of security and witnessed the inner dynamics of that relationship firsthand. Roger has been candid about what he observed and what he didn't. While he saw Jay-Z and Diddy interact on numerous occasions, he said he never walked away from those interactions believing there was any real depth or genuine closeness to their bond. His take was striking in its specificity. Diddy, he suggested, believed the relationship was far more intimate and significant than Jay-Z ever did. What Roger described was a connection defined not by true friendship or loyalty, but by the mutual exchange of resources, access, and influence. They occupied the same spaces, they shared the same rooms, they moved in the same circles, but beneath the surface, according to Roger, And the foundation was always far more transactional than emotional. And that kind of foundation, no matter how impressive it looks from the outside, is rarely built to withstand a storm of this magnitude.
I believe Puff felt they was close.
Oh.
But if you was a person on the outside looking in, like me and Uncle Paulie used to always talk about it, me and D-Rock was talking about, yo, why Puff kind of like sucking Jay off so much? You know what I'm saying? Because you'd be like, we done flew to 5 or 6, 7 different concerts that Jay-Z has. But Jay-Z is not at one of Puff's shows. You know what I'm saying? You look at the Rock brunch where Puff will break his neck to get to the brunch. But Jay-Z don't pop up at any of Puff parties. You know, now I can only speak up until 2012. You know what I'm saying? And Puff was breaking his neck. Like, at the end of the day, in our mind, we say, yo, he ain't even invite Puff to his wedding. When he married Beyonce, Steve Stout and all of them was there. You know what I'm saying? And Puff was kind of in his feelings, but once again.
Oh, Puff was upset he didn't get invited to the wedding?
Of course he was.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? But you got to remember, we're security, so we're bottom on a tote pole. So he's not going to show you that it really affects him until you have a little conversation with him, or you say something, or you overhear something. But he didn't get invited to that, you know. Yeah, Jay came through every once in a while, like if we was in a yacht in San Tropez or one of these places. It was disrespectful, and he knocked over the Grey Goose bottles, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo,
I heard about this.
Fuck y'all niggas doing that for, yo, da-da-da-da-da-da. But Jay didn't care, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and Pet Guys came back to the house and explained to self, da-da-da-da-da. You know, I was eavesdropping and airdropping, you know, because like I said, Puff is always ready to fight. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, Emery had just came home and this, that, and the other like that, and they ordered Grey Goose bottles. Now, why you got 10 Grey Goose bottles coming to the table if you know I'm right here at the table and I got Ciroc? So there's a lot of different things that don't add up.
When it's all laid out in full, the picture that emerges is one of two extraordinarily powerful men whose relationship was always far more fragile than the public ever knew. They were never truly loyal to one another, not in the way that word really means. What they shared was proximity, power, and mutual usefulness. And now that the walls are closing in and the stakes couldn't be higher, those long-buried cracks are splitting wide open in front of the entire world. The question everyone seems to be asking now is whether those fractures will prove deep enough to swallow them both. Will the fallout from Diddy's downfall reach far enough to fundamentally alter Jay-Z's legacy, or even his freedom? The entertainment world is watching closely and no one is looking away. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you stand on all of this, because this story is far from over.